The, the time, testing. Can't really hear too well. Huh? Testing. Go ahead and testing. My mic's not working well. Yeah? Testing. Yeah? Testing. Yeah. Testing. All right, the time is now 6:03. The Board of Education will now reconvene in open session. Roll call.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Here.
Mr. Lara, absent. Mrs. Cabral,
Present.
Mrs. Cordero. Here. Mr. Valencia.
Present. Item A, report from closed session. For closed session, items A, B, and C, information was received. Item B, introduction of interpreters. Tonight's interpreters are Manuel Rios Victoria and Jesus Fuentes. Greeting and support this evening is provided by Benji Alfaro and Susana Pineda. Item C, Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led this evening by Lucas Cabrera.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lucas Cabrera. I will be leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Please face the flag. Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Is provided by Arianas Elementary.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Valencia, Board Trustees, Superintendent, Dr. McDuffie, Ariana's students, families, and staff that are here tonight, and all educational partners. I am Arianas Elementary School Principal Ron Smith, and we are happy to be participating in the Board Inspiration presentation. The song Nifty 50 United States was written in 1961. This novelty song became one of the most well-known mnemonic devices to recite alphabetically the name of the states. Our 3-4 combination class students will sing this catchy tune for you. I'm happy to introduce Katie Clough and her class to sing the Nifty 50 United States. And board members, I do invite you to come down so you can participate with our audience.
Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, and then it goes. Massachusetts, Michigan. Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska. Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, West Virginia, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, and Connecticut. Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Massachusetts, Michigan. Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska. Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, check it out. That day to every state. Look at this way, we'll all take a bunch of pictures, and parents want photos too.
Sure. We do have a quick comment from the board before the students start to leave. So if you're able to have a few moments. please stick around.
I would just like to make sure that all of the parents and families that came to see your children tonight, we really, really appreciate your efforts. We absolutely, this is the highlight of our board meetings, is to have students come and perform. So thank you very much.
All right. Next up, Item E, recognition. First is the Elementary Game Changer Award winners. Mrs. Brock.
Good evening, board members, and thank you for having us this evening. Tonight, we are excited to introduce the students who have been designated as game changers by their elementary sports coaches. Each student is receiving a package tonight with a beautiful certificate. On the back of the certificate is an explanation of why they were chosen for the award so that they can remember what they did that was so amazing. And we actually have a set for you with all of the reasons. And then each student is receiving a beautiful game changer t-shirt that they can wear with pride. And so it is a pleasure to introduce to you this evening our elementary sports lead and PE health TOSA, Miss Mauricia Ray Clark, who will explain the Game Changer Award. Good evening. My name is Mauricia Ray Clark, and I am the elementary sports lead. This year, we've offered 5 different after-school sports for our elementary schools: cheer in the fall and in the spring, flag football, volleyball, soccer, and track is currently happening right now. 59 teams have been formed this year, allowing over 1,300 students to participate in after-school sports here at Santa Maria Bonita. At the end of every season, I ask coaches to nominate one student athlete who demonstrates the values of a game changer. These are the values. Game changers lead. They lead with positivity, consistency, and courage. They work. They are the hardest workers on the team during practice and games. They commit. They are fully committed to the shared goal of the team. They trust. They trust themselves, their teammates, and their coaches. They initiate. They initiate work, not waiting for others. They encourage. They positively encourage their teammates regardless of the outcome. And lastly, they compete. They compete to the very end, no matter the outcome. So right now, what I want is if my game changers and my coaches could please come up together. Everybody up here at the front, please. We'll just wait, Maggie, and I'll do a little intro. And you guys can go on the steps too. Everybody here? So out of the over 1,300 student athletes that we've had so far, these are the 37 who have rose to the top. This is the cream of the crop. The student athletes who we look forward to seeing them in the future be our leaders. These students they have positively impacted not only their teams, but their school as well. With them today are their coaches who have dedicated their time, energy, and passion to giving their students the opportunity to become athletes and leaders in their community. Please join me in congratulating our game changers and their coaches. Okay, coaches, you can go ahead and give your game changers their certificates and their t-shirts. Invite board members. All right. And board members, if you could join our game changers and the coaches. Board members? Yeah. Parents, if you would like to come up and grab a quick picture, that would be fine. And while we do that, once again, I want to congratulate these 37 athletes who have earned the Game Changer Award. Thank you to the board for allowing us to expand and support elementary sports. We are so proud of our programs, and it's students like you who make these programs a success. Let's give all these game changers a big round of applause. And if Maggie gives me a thumbs up, okay, excellent. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, parents. You're welcome to go or stay, whatever you'd like.
All right. At this time, we would like to call up one by one the representatives that are here this evening to recognize our district employees in the following classifications. Item A, National Speech Pathologist Day. Our first recognition this evening will be presented by Heather Allen in honor of National Speech Pathologist Day. Mrs. Allen.
Good evening. May 18th is National Speech Pathologist Day and provides an opportunity to raise awareness about communication disorders and to recognize our team of speech pathologists here at Santa Maria Bonita. One of my favorite descriptions of a school speech pathologist is a person who makes the universal human right of effective communication accessible for their students while supporting families and school staff in the process. 3 years ago, we had 17 teletherapists on staff, but with the help of our cabinet and board, a salary schedule was approved along with accepting full years of service. Now we only have 7 teletherapists on our team of 28 SLPs. We have also been able to attract many interns over the last few years. I would like to introduce and honor some of our SLPs who are here tonight. Hillary Vansleer is at Libben. Joel Hartwell at Battles. Donna Greer at Liberty. Hannah Elston is at Taylor. And Allison Bromley at Fessler and Shelley Rickey at Jimenez are joining us online tonight. Thank you for honoring this profession and for recognizing the amazing work they do for our families and our students. Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the board or questions? Seeing none. And thank you, Ms. Allen. Next item, item B, Day of the Teacher. Our next representative this evening on behalf of Day of the Teacher will be Kristen Lohr. Ms. Lohr. Good evening.
Dr. McDuffie, cabinet, students, families, colleagues. I'm Kristen Lohr, and I'm your new SMBSD president. I'm humbled to be here today because to honor our amazing staff and the Day of the Teacher, the SMBSD cabinet, myself, and our committee members all appreciate you all year long, but especially today. Trials to treasure. SMBSD and I definitely appreciate you. A trial or test provides stretching, and the stretching provides a new capacity to receive. Recognizing this capacity in all first-year members is pure joy. You have tirelessly completed this year of introduction and have fallen in love with your first class, your first learners, and clients. It's almost time to rest and take a well-deserved break. You members who have had the countdown on your phones or on the whiteboard since the first conference session, I applaud you. You've made it through one complete year, so please reach out to any of us in this room and in your campuses should you grow weak or weary, because it's our honor to hold you up and share our strengths and prosper all of our members. You are our rubies, trials to treasure. The greater capacity to receive provides a fresh hunger to fill. A fresh hunger to fill provides a new pursuit to find. Thank you to our members who consistently find methods and pedagogy for effective results when working with smaller groups of students. Working one-on-one or behind the scenes, you support and bolster the work of other members. I applaud your attention to detail and dedication to making the best in education even better. By examining, evaluating, and pushing through, you tackle the tasks that reach the hearts and minds of your students where others fear to tread. You are our pure pearls, trials to treasure. The new pursuit to find provides new discoveries to seek. New discoveries found provide a greater breadth of wisdom. I salute all SMBSD members who are naturally wisdom seekers and lifelong learners with self-motivated, never-ceasing quests to grow professionally and academically. Our goals are our imperatives to better serve our students in Santa Maria through fairness, awareness, safety, and excellence. We are all sapphires. Trials to treasure. That's the blue one. The greater breadth of wisdom awakens the heart to the person you are. A heart awakened to your gifts and talents provides a greater desire for deeper understanding of your place in the world. I think the Billingers might have left. This is for all of the people that will be saying goodbye with the Billingers this year. Thank you to our retirees and members looking ahead to exit the classroom and enter this world, saying with a glint of sass in your eye, oh, every day is a weekend. I pray that soon you'll evaluate your career, your report card, your IEP rubric, screener, or cost form, and know with great confidence you've done your very best. You've hit the highest marks 100% of the time, and with an excellent attitude. Soon you graduates will be basking in the glow of your well-deserved retirement. Your years of dedication will leave an indelible mark on all of us. We can't thank you enough for your tireless efforts in shaping the minds and hearts of the children of our community. Well done. May our next adventure be filled with love, joy, and peace. You are our diamonds, trials to treasure. A deeper understanding of your place in the world is the blessing that can come from a trial or test. And thank you for this time. I need to give credit to the poetic part. The Trials is an excerpt from The Journey by Rocky Fleming.
Do we have any comments from the board? Seeing none, we have another congratulations. Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Lore. Item C, Classified School Employee Appreciation Week. Our next representative is Melissa Gutierrez on behalf of Classified School Appreciation Week. Ms. Gutierrez.
Just making sure he gets my good side. Hi, my name is Melissa Gutierrez. I am president of Chapter 129 for representing our CSCA classified employees. Each May, California salutes the important contributions of classified school employees during Classified School Employees Week, which is CSEW. This year, we will be celebrating the theme Empowering Generations. Classified employees perform a wide range of essential work, including food services, maintenance and operation, paraeducators, office and clerical staff, our libraries, and in our IT department, and much more. We provide daily guidance to our students from Santa Maria Bonita and beyond. Classified employees have earned respect as partners in the education community. More importantly, they have become recognized as the essential frontline workers who keep our schools up and running while making a difference in the lives of the students that they serve. It's wonderful to see the hard work of our classified employees being acknowledged and appreciated. And on behalf of Chapter 129, I'd like to thank you for the recognition.
Do we have any comments from the board? Thank you very much, Ms. Gutierrez. Item D, National School Nurse Day. Next, we will hear from Carolyn Kleinsmith on behalf of National School Nurse Day. Mrs. Kleinsmith.
Thank you. Good evening, President Valencia, board members, Superintendent McDuffie, and Cabinet. Thank you for this opportunity to recognize our very special nursing team. Our team includes the credentialed school nurses, licensed vocational nurses, and licensed psychiatric technicians. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to some of our team members. I would like to start with our credentialed school nurses, if they could all please stand. We have Kelly Haynes. Kelly's been in the district for about 23 years now. And then Heather Clinton, she's also been with us for about 20 years now. So they are our veterans. And joining them are as our new nurses, most of them joining our team this year. Marianne Nugel, Rebecca Weston, Lisa, Marie, Stephanie Hernandez. And I think that's all the nurses that are here tonight. So thank you guys for being here. Let me tell you a little bit about what our credentialed school nurses do. They manage the healthcare of students while they are at school. Currently, we have 1,085 students who are identified as having a health condition. The school nurses are skilled in assessment, intervention, and case management. They develop care plans, and they are responsible for the implementation of the care plan and progress monitoring of the students' health at school. Their knowledge and, our school nurses are members of the IEP teams, 504 teams, and crisis response teams, and their knowledge and skills link health and education by providing information on how students' complex health conditions impact educational access and participation. And they make recommendations on how to accommodate students' health needs so they can optimally participate in their educational programs. Supporting the work of the school nurses are the licensed vocational nurses and the licensed psychiatric technicians. The LVNs and LPTs are essential team members. They are vital to the school nurses being able to manage the health needs of students. They are the front line for acute response and provide the school nurses with important health information so they can plan for student health care at school. Do we have any of our LVNs here tonight? Any of the LPTs? Hey, go ahead and stand up. So we have PJ Curto is one of our LPTs, and Lorena Holken is another one of our LPTs. Our LPTs are licensed vocational nurses that have a specialty in mental health. They are the crisis first responders for the district. They perform risk assessments for students who are at risk of harming themselves or others, and they participate in safety planning and intervention to support these at-risk students. Prior to the pandemic, there was an average of 35 risk incidents a year. Following the pandemic, there has been a significant increase in the number of risk incidents. This year, there have been 376 risk incidents. Our LPTs are ready to respond in these critical situations and support the student and the school crisis response teams to ensure students receive appropriate care and are safe. Our LVNs aren't represented tonight, but they are vital to our success. The LVNs are the acute care first responders. They respond to the daily acute calls for student injuries and symptoms that are not typical of minor illnesses. They also perform daily medical treatments such as diabetic care, G-tube feedings, and catheterization. The LVNs on average respond to 500 calls a month for acute care, and they perform 42 daily medical treatments. Our LVNs, under the direction of the school nurses, ensure students receive necessary medical treatments and provide emergency response to assess students and access them to properly and to appropriate levels of care. Please join me in thanking our incredible team of health professionals for their dedication and hard work in supporting our students' health and well-being. Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the board? Ms. Cordell?
Yes. Thank you to every single one of our employees in Santa Maria Bonita School District. It does not happen unless we all work together. And while we always encounter a few bumps in the road, an occasional stall, and sometimes even a thunderstorm, in the end, we pull together and we make it happen for our students. And I sincerely thank you and completely appreciate the work that every single person does in our district. It has importance.
Are there any other comments from the board? I also just want to extend my thanks to all of our school staff. I'm a little biased because I'm a teacher and I appreciate the Teacher Appreciation Week because I also know how often our work in education is underappreciated. But I do want to, again, really highlight the fact that all of our staff have a critical role to play. I can tell you that in my experience, one of the most impressionable folks that left an imprint on me was one of our classified staff. He was part of our custodial team at El Camino, and he's the one that, pulled me off to the side and encouraged me to pursue cross country, would take me to cross country races, would even fund those races on my behalf when I couldn't afford them. And so, from teachers to school nurses, today I work at Santa Maria High School, go Saints. And one of my students I noticed was not feeling well. They were trying to tough it out in class, right? But I just went up to the student and said, hey, looks like you're not feeling well. And, very graciously headed over to the nurse's office. So I feel so grateful that we have so many key staff in so many key places, because our district is supporting the whole child, right? Not just their academic well-being, but their social emotional learning. And so all of you have a key part to play in that. So I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such critical players. I know how tough it is this time of year also. May is really tough. It's like the home stretch. So please continue to take care of yourselves. Folks are getting sick, students, staff, right? And we know when we don't take care of ourselves, that's typically what happens, right? Our bodies will shut down. So please be good to yourselves in the same way you're good to our students, so that you could continue to fill their cups as well as yours. So thank you so much. Appreciate you. And thank you, Mrs. Kleinsmith, for the presentation. Item 8, public comment period, open session. The public comments are intended for members of the public to address the Board of Education on items involving the school district. Such testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each, 450 words per person subject, and 15 minutes total for each topic. If an answer to a specific question is requested, the board president will, if appropriate, direct administration to respond in writing. Just a reminder to all speakers and presenters, please be mindful when speaking at the podium not to speak too quickly, so that our interpreters are able to increase accuracy and keep pace for our Spanish and Mixtec speaking audience. Do we have any non-agenda public comments this evening, Dr. McDuffie?
Yes, we do, and I will call up first. I'll call you all up at the same time. They're from Arianas Junior High: Jennifer Danowitz, Elijah Jordan, Ophelia Lopez, Sophia Navoa, and Kendra Alcazar. Come on up.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jennifer Danowitz, and I am the instructional coach and one of the web coordinators for Arianas Junior High School. WEB stands for Where Everybody Belongs. It is a program designed to help students transition and adjust during their first year of middle school. This is the first year of Arianas's web program. Our web leaders have worked really hard this year to bring our 7th graders into the Arianas community, and have also made sure everybody at Arianas feels like they belong by planning events for the whole school, fostering relationships with staff, and giving back to the community. Back in September, web leaders approached me about hosting a culture and community event. By working with Arianas staff and each other, these 8th graders made their idea a reality. These 4 web leaders are excited to tell you more about the Arianas Junior High Open House and Family Fun Night. For anyone interested, we have flyers on the table by the door. Thank you.
Hello, board meeting. I want to welcome everyone who's here and everyone who is watching. I'm actually quite grateful for y'all being here. Hi, my name is Ophelia Lopez, and I am one of the web leaders from Ms. Danowitz's class for Arianas Junior High.
Hello, members of the school board. My name is Elijah. Arianas is going to be having a family and community night at our open house. We are doing this open house because we want to celebrate the school and the students. We will be celebrating open house on Wednesday, May 15th.
I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering what we're going to be offering. So what we're going to be offering for this open house and family fun night is some activities for the kids. We are hoping that some Mixteco families or also farm workers can join us. There will be some booths for different school departments such as English, math, history, science, and etc. We are also doing some games for them and others, etc. Why are we doing this? We are doing this so we can help celebrate our school community and cultures. And we are hoping for all of the school board meetings, family and the community can come and join us. Thank you. Primeramente, les quería decir buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Sofía Novoa y su nombre es Kendall Casa. Yo soy una estudiante de la secundaria de Arellanes. Hoy queremos platicar sobre el tema de casa abierta y noche de familia. Este evento se trata de celebrar nuestra cultura y estudiantes. La cultura latina se va a celebrar en honor del 5 de mayo. Van a haber juegos y comidas tradicionales. Nosotros creemos que la cultura es una parte muy importante de nuestra escuela. Va a ser en la Escuela de Arellanes el 15 de mayo, empezando a las 6:15 y terminará a las 7:45. Esta es una oportunidad muy buena para pasar tiempo en familia, disfrutando de las actividades y conocer más de nuestra escuela. Algunas de nuestras actividades para celebrar a nuestros estudiantes y su cultura van a incluir grupo excéntrico, exhibición de arte, concierto de la banda escolar, juegos, lonchera y mucho más. Vamos a estar vendiendo tickets que costarán $1 por ticket y los necesitarás para jugar los juegos y hacer las actividades. Gracias. Nos gustaría informarles que todos pueden ir y queríamos darles las invitaciones a todos. Muchas gracias. Baba, yo nani nya Ofelia Lopez na aku nya chunya haisan kuni na sanya nya evento na kishando yo no yo Tanglewood nya kisha música nya banda nya high school nya junior high school shinya banda nya nikacha excelentico yo inga niyo van na kishana lo comida na cochindoña cachina soy tu cocina. Los otros queremos a ustedes que van a venir. Yo los yo kuni na kushando yo nya evento nya sando ayara ni junior high.
Thank you. We really hope to see all of you next Wednesday at Arianas Junior High.
Before you all leave, I was wondering if the board had any questions or comments. Mr. Hollenshead?
I'm not sure I heard the time.
Our night begins with a food truck from one of our local families at 4:30. Then we will have some parent meetings for our incoming web leaders as well as our incoming 7th grade families, one at 5 and then 5:30 respectively. We have a band concert at 5:30, and then most of our activities will be from 6:15 to 7:45 that evening.
All right. We want to thank you so much. Students, thank you for your leadership in this regard. Thank you for modeling what honoring culture looks like in English, Spanish, and Mixteco. That makes the information accessible, right, to so many of our families. And hopefully our community can join you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Dr. McDuffie, do we have any public comments? Oh,
We
something
have
prior to?
another one, non-agenda item, Teresa Brady.
Good morning, or good evening, everybody. My name is Therese Brady. I say that all the time, all day long. Anyway, my name is Therese Brady, and I've been teaching in Santa Maria Bonita for 33 years, proudly. I love our district and I love our community. And okay, I'll begin now. So SMEA and the district are currently negotiating member contributions to our healthcare and prescription insurance rates, which could go up as much as 9 to 13%. That equals $183 to $252 every month. What does this mean to teachers' wallets? From new teachers to teachers in the early part of their careers, to teachers in the latter part of their careers, to double covered employees such as spouses who both teach, to retirees on a fixed income, everyone will feel the cost of having to pay more for their insurance coverage. Some teachers will break even, while many others will get a pay cut. In essence, the 10% salary raise we negotiated at the beginning of the school year puts us back to where we were before, chasing the rising cost of inflation. What can be done if after negotiations, an increase in the cost of insurance puts us back to where we were before the raise? An answer that is clear to me is that our compensation will need to be more than commensurate with the rise in insurance costs. The roller coaster ride of catching up to the rate of inflation and then falling behind again is no way to live. In fact, it's demoralizing. According to the May SMBSD community newsletter, more than $217 million over the past decade has been invested, as well as tens of millions more in the next 3 to 4 years to improve our schools, which is good for our students and community. Investing in our employees is important too. So I am hopeful that we can make salaries such that at minimum, we are keeping up with the cost of living and inflation every year. As frontline workers exposed to viruses and more, the health and safety of SMBSD teachers are of utmost concern to us, but so is the ability to pay our bills. As our insurance rates and cost of living go up, so too should our compensation. That's it. But I'd like to say one more thing, separate issue. Thank you for getting the solar panels. I'm very, very excited, and I've been hoping for a long time that we would do that. So I was very excited to see that in the newsletter as well.
Okay, we have one more speaker for a item that's on the agenda. It's the consent item on water supply improvements project. Kayla Ailman.
Good evening. Thank you for all those who are here and watching online. So I'm glad to be here again. I'm focusing on just general health and safety, kind of for our staff and students. So a little bit about me. I'm a physical education teacher in the district, about to start year 10 and pursuing the national board certification. So focusing on temperature and hydration for my work environment as well as my students. So high or warm temperatures are impacting student learning in PE by blocking our visual aids, adding glare, agitating in student and teacher mood or behavior, and limits high intensity movement, which adjusts how I plan for our class. On Battles campus, there's 4 shade areas, but the areas are not conducive for PE direct instruction or independent practice. Additionally, 2 of the areas are not supervised during recess. And some of the pictures you can see some of the areas of very limited shade. Shade can create a more enjoyable direct instruction and learning environment and provide PE teachers with temperature relief and allow for adequate social emotional regulation for teachers and students. So I recommend trees and shade structures or indoor gyms to help with this issue. Another issue is hydration. Staying hydrated is complex for the 360 students I teach, about 900 on our campus, because we share 4 water fountains. Some students bring water bottles to reduce waste. However, there is no filtered water for staff, students, or those available on campus. There's only ones that you'll see in the next slide. So I urge the board to consider just refillable filtered water stations for all school sites for teachers, staff, and students. Some of my student advocates are seen in the photo. First, there's Noemi. She is very proud of herself. I am proud of her, and she is the one who's pursued this topic with me all year. So she says, sometimes we need to fill up our water bottles if we get too hot. They took the refillable water bottle stations that were installed during COVID. They took those away for no reason. Now we don't have one. I want cold water that tastes good. Jeremiah, who's a 5th grade student, also shared his perspective. He said, we need a drink to taste good and filtered. Sometimes the AC doesn't work and it's not reliable, so I get burning hot. I don't know where the water bottle fountain is at my school. So to conclude, I just help you all prioritize the shade and hydration and temperature for our students and the teachers' work environment. Thank you.
That's all we have.
Does that conclude our non-agenda and agendized comments, Dr. McDuffie?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Item 9, approval of agenda as presented. May I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
It is moved by Ms. Cordero and seconded by Ms. Cabral to accept the agenda as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 10, consent items. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are consistent with adopted policies and approved practices of the district and are deemed routine in nature. They will be acted upon by roll call vote in one motion without discussion unless a member of the board requests an item be pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be voted on separately. May I have a motion to approve the consent items as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
It is moved by Mr. Hollinshead and seconded by Ms. Cordero to approve the consent items as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 11, action items. Item A, Resolution 23-24, Order of Election. Dr. McDuffie.
Thank you, President Valencia. Statewide general election will be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. On the state, the Santa Maria Bonita School District Governing Board members will be elected to fill terms that will expire on December 13th, 2024. Terms expiring are those of Ricardo Valencia, trustee area number 4, John Hollinshead, trustee area number 5, and Linda Cordero, trustee area number 3. The resolution indicates the date and purpose of this election. This resolution is provided by the Santa Barbara County Education Office.
Are there any further questions from the board or comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 23-24, Order of Election as presented. And I'll second.
It is moved by Ms. Cordero and seconded by Ms. Cabral that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 23-24, Order of Election Day as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia.
Aye. Motion passes. Item B, Notice of Elective Offices to be filled. Dr. McDuffie.
Thank you, President Valencia. The statewide general election will be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. On this date, Santa Maria Bonita School District Governing Board members will be elected to fill terms that will expire on December 13th, 2024. The 4-year terms expiring are those of Ricardo Valencia, trustee area number 4, John Hollinshead, trustee area number 5, and Linda Cordero, trustee area number 3.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve notice of elective offices to be filled as presented.
And I'll second.
It is moved by Ms. Cabral and seconded by Ms. Cordero that the Board of Education approve notice of elective offices to be filled as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Does this require a roll call vote or is that perfectly fine? Excellent. Thank you very much. Item C, Resolution 23-28, candidate statements. Dr. McDuffie.
Thank you, President Valencia. The statewide general election will be held on November 5th, 2024. On the state, Santa Maria Bonita School District governing board members will be elected to fill terms that will expire on December 13th, 2024. Resolution 23-28 requires that the present board adopt certain policies regarding candidates' statements.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 23-28, candidate statements as presented.
I'll second.
It is moved by Ms. Cordero and seconded by Ms. Cabral that the Board of Education adopt resolution number 23-28, candidate statements as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Hollingshead,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia.
Aye. Motion passes. Item D, agreement with STEM Center USA to provide summer STEAM curriculum instructors, guides, and material kits for Camp Elevate DLI summer program. Mrs. Graf.
Good evening again. So we are bringing forth a contract. It's considered a new contract for new services, but we have used this vendor several times. This is for the science curriculum for the DLI Summer Camp Elevate at Jimenez Elementary. The reason that we're bringing STEM Center USA forward is because the supplemental science program that we are using for Camp Elevate, which is just kidding. EIE Science, Museum of Science. They don't have a Spanish component available in that supplemental program, so it wasn't appropriate to be used in the DLI summer school. And since STEM Center USA is a proven vendor and they have completely bilingual instructors, the DLI team chose this vendor for their summer science supplemental curriculum. What questions might I answer for you?
You answered the one question that I had.
Oh, which one was it?
Well, why it was only for DLI?
Yeah, that's why.
And then as a follow-up question, I know we've used them in the past based on what you said, but how do we know that that this program is a good fit for our students?
So as I mentioned up there, we have received a lot of positive program feedback from several programs that have used STEM Center USA in the past, including our Migrant Saturday School, our Migrant Summer School, and last year's Camp Elevate, both for academics in the morning and enrichment in the afternoon. It's one of our highest rated programs that we get feedback from students on, and it is the highest rated for teacher feedback in those programs.
I'm glad to hear that we're getting feedback from our staff and especially our students, right? Who are the main people that we should be listening to when it comes to these types of programs. The other question is how do we know that this program is cost effective relative to other programs?
So it's an interesting question. STEM Center USA was kind of a standalone single source provider for several years, and we love their program, but we also didn't have a whole lot of options. We just returned, my ASP team just returned from the Boost Conference, which is an after schools program conference. And we actually found several STEM and STEAM vendors at the exhibitor fair there. So we will be exploring cost effectiveness and comparisons in our next round, but we had already executed this contract. So at first blush, it looks to be a very cost-effective program compared to the other vendors, but I haven't done a deep dive yet. I just returned last week, but we will do that before we bring another STEM contract to the board.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the agreement with STEM Center USA to provide summer STEAM curriculum instructors, guides, and material kits for Camp Elevate DLI summer program.
I'll second.
It is moved by Ms. Cordero and seconded by Ms. Cabral that the Board of Education approve the agreement with STEM Center USA to provide summer STEAM curriculum instructors, guides, and material kits for Camp Elevate DLI summer program as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Does that also not require a roll call vote? Excellent. Item E, public hearing and proposal for increasing school facilities fees as authorized by Education Code Section 17620 and Government Code Section 65995 Level 1. At this time, we will open the public hearing. The time is 7:02 p.m. Do we have any comments for the public hearing this evening, Dr. McDuffie?
No, we do not.
With no comments reported, the public hearing is now closed. The time is 7:02 p.m. Item F, Resolution 23-25, adoption of a fee justification study and the increase in school facilities fees as authorized by Education Code Section 17620 and Government Code Section 65995 Level 1. Mr. Beecher.
Thank you very much, President Valencia. This is an item that we bring to the school board every other year. And so it is relatively routine, but it does have some statutory requirements, including that public hearing. So the background on this item is that new housing generally will generate new students, certainly increases the likelihood that the district will grow with new students. That creates the need for school districts to build or modernize schools to house those students. Education Code 17620 provides districts with the ability, given certain conditions, to assess fees, meaning require fees on the developments within their boundaries to provide resources to house those students so that when people are building those buildings, they contribute their share of the resources required to create or modernize school facilities for students. Government Code 65995 provides for an increase in that fee every 2 years. And our share of these fees after the increase would be $3.69 for residential development and 60 cents for commercial development. You can see the previous fees down below. Because we share a boundary with the high school district, we actually have an agreement to share the overall fee amount based on the grade levels served in each district. So in general terms, the report that we get from SchoolWorks, that is our provider, our consultant in this area, documents the nexus that's required for us to be able to charge the fee. There's a burden nexus that identifies the number of students to be generated and the facility and cost of the impact of those new students. The cost nexus shows that there's a need for the fee to be collected, but also that the fees that are collected won't exceed the cost that is incurred to house the students. And then the benefit nexus to make sure and ensure that the district is actually spending the fees that they collect on those students to house those students coming from the development. Our justification study does document all of those I don't even know, is it nexuses, nexi? I'm not really sure. I probably should have thought that sentence through before I started saying it. But it does document our qualification, our justification to assess those fees. If the board approves and passes this resolution, that new fee for level 1 on commercial and residential property will go into effect 60 days from now. Are there any questions?
Question, Ms. Cordero, did you have a question?
It's not really a question, it's really more just a comment. I think I can maybe remember one time when a developer attended one of these meetings to basically object to raising the fees. And I fully appreciate that, you know, the cost of housing, the cost of building anything, including our schools, is almost out of control. I mean, we keep charging more and it costs more and it just keeps going up and up and up. But the bottom line is we have to have a place and have the funds to provide the classrooms for our students. So I don't really see any way that we cannot approve it.
A question that I have is, does this apply to ADUs?
Yes, this fee would apply to an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, assuming they meet the statutory requirements to allow us to charge that fee. Any any project that has square feet that are 500 square feet or less is actually exempt from fees. So it'll depend on the permit. We watch very closely the permits we get from the city. So we would, if it fell in that range, we would be charging a fee on those accessory dwelling units. And before you get to the next question, I want to comment on Linda's comment / question. It is important when we have these opportunities as a school district to make sure that we're reaching to all the places we can qualify for, to create resources, to build new schools and modernize the schools we have in place. This fee, level 1, is one way that we can do that. Level 2 fees are another one. We have a consent agenda item that talks about authorization and direction to pursue funding through state match. We do everything we can to create resources, generate resources to improve or add our facilities. So I just wanted to make sure and add that comment. As you know, one of the things we'll talk about a bit later on the agenda is the fiscal aspects of a general obligation bond, a potential general obligation bond, and they're all connected. The item in consent for state funding, this item here tonight, and then also a discussion about a potential school bond. Again, addressing that responsibility to house students. Please, Mr. Valencia, your next question.
So my follow-up question is, I believe we're going to be looking at two different fees, the developer fee and then the school facilities. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
When both of those fees are combined, do you know that amount?
Yes, it'll be a part of my presentation on level 2. It's an interesting way that the fees work together. They sound like, and we talk about them like level 1 and level 2, but really a school district that qualifies for level 2 fees only has level 1 fee, level 2 fees on new development. And so that level 2 fee is an alternative fee. So all new development sees only that fee. That level 1 component is really just kind of a clerical part of accounting for level 1 and level 2, but they really only see that level 2 fee. For those items that don't qualify for level 2, and they would only be charged this level 1 fee. And that's important from the standpoint of that 60-day time frame. So if you're remodeling a home and you're just adding some square footage and updating some pieces that is more than 500 square feet, that additional square footage would be charged the level 1 fee, because it's not new development, it's improving existing development. So we only would charge that level 1 fee. If it's a brand new home or a brand new unit like an ADU, we would charge that level 2 fee. And so that's how they kind of relate and connect in response to your question.
So just to clarify, does that mean level two fees also apply to ADUs in addition to level one?
Yes,
And that's only if they go beyond 500 square feet, similar to the level one?
correct. Correct. Anything that is 500 square feet or less is exempt.
And does the way it work is are folks charged for anything above 500 square feet? So for example, if they're 500 or 550 feet, are they charged the 50 feet or are they charged for the totality of 550?
They're charged for the totality of the 550 square feet because once it passes the exemption level at 500 feet, it is no longer exempt and you charge it for the full 550 feet.
Gotcha. So if we're only looking at level one right now, which is what this one is focusing on, what is the amount again?
I'd have to flip back to the presentation because my memory won't get there for me. $3.69 for residential and 60 cents for commercial. So commercial would be office space. It would be storage buildings have their own fee. It's like 13 or 14 cents because that is the fee right there, 369.
And so assuming this moves forward, it would be 369 for level one plus whatever level two would be. And then we get that total amount, correct?
It would be 369 for level one. If you're adding square feet to an existing home, so it qualifies, it doesn't qualify for new development. If it is if it is new development, then you would be charged the level two fee that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Okay.
Because it's an alternate fee.
Okay. So again, just to clarify, if it's because ADUs are a really popular topic right now, right? Of conversation. So if it's an ADU, just to use that as an example, it would be level one plus level two.
Correct.
And do you know,
the level two fee?
do you know what that amount is already for level two as well?
Not from memory, but we'll get to it in my next presentation. Yep.
All right. Are there any further questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 23-25, adoption of a fee justification study and the increase in school facilities fees as authorized by Education Code Section 17620 and Government Code Section 65995, Level 1, as presented.
Second.
It is moved by Ms. Cordero and seconded by Mr. Hollenshead that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 23-25, adoption of a fee justification study and the increase in school facilities fees as authorized by Education Code Section 17620 and Government Code Section 65995 Level 1 as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Hollenshead,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item G, public hearing regarding proposed adoption of a school facilities needs analysis and the establishment of an alternative fee, increasing fees on development projects pursuant to section 65995.5 and 65995.7 level 2. At this time, we will open the public hearing. The time is 7:15. Do we have any comments for the public hearing this evening, Dr. McDuffie?
No, we do not.
With no comments reported, the public hearing is now closed. The time is 7:15 p.m. Item H, Resolution 23-26, adoption of a school facilities needs analysis and the establishment of an alternative fee, increasing fees on development projects pursuant to Government Code Section 65995.5 and 65995.7 Level 2. Mr. Reacher.
Thank you very much, President Valencia. This is the second report that we bring to the school board related to fees on new development. On this item, it's required that a school district renew its qualification and calculation of this fee every year. It's an alternative fee, as I mentioned. If the development falls under the regulations that specify level 2 fee applies, it's the level 2 fee that applies to that development. It is intended to represent the local share of the 50% match that the state calculates for the school facility program. So that the state says a school should cost, I'll make a number up, $1 million. The state's program and how they allocate their grants would come up with $500,000. And the expectation is that this fee, this level 2 fee, if a district qualifies for it, would make up the other half. Because their 100% number is not realistic for building a school, this number also is not a realistic representation of the 50%. But it's better than not having any source for local match. And so we absolutely follow the process to create this report, bring it to the school board for consideration and approval. Again, to maximize the resources that are available to us to address this critical need. They're valid for 12 months, as I mentioned. And so we are required every spring to bring forth this report for the school board. We had a little bit of a hiccup with getting advertisement into the newspaper. So we weren't able to bring this to the school board in April, but as soon as we could qualify for adequate notice, we're bringing it to you tonight. So these are some details on how school districts qualify. We have to have eligibility at the state level. This is the 50% match that's supposed to be local. So the provision says if you're not eligible at the state for new construction money, then you don't have our 50%. You don't qualify for this 50% either. And so we make sure that we always make timely application for construction eligibility at the state. The state has found we have construction eligibility, so we qualify there. And then in that third section, we have to qualify under 2 out of the 4 sections. We qualify under having issued debt or incurred obligations equal to 15% of our bonding capacity. You can see between the certificates of participation that we have and the Measure T commitment that we have from our community, we've incurred 55.97% of our bonding capacity in debt. The other thing that we have to have is at least 20% of our teaching stations are in portable classrooms, and we're currently in 24.14% of our teaching stations are in portable buildings. So we qualify for those 2 reasons. Next, we have to prepare the report that's being presented tonight and then follow the procedures identified in state law, which is where I was telling you, there's some notice requirements, some advertising requirements, posting requirements. And if you line all those up properly, you can get this fee approved at the board level and start assessing it. So a really brief synopsis of the information that's used to calculate the fee. We look at pupil generation rates, which is based on how many students come out of permits that were issued in the last 5 years. Our consultant does a really detailed job. He grabs all of our students out of Aries and their addresses. He grabs all of the permits issued in the last 5 years by the city and matches the addresses on those permits to our students in Aries and says, here's your generation rate. A lot of consultants just kind of sample and create an estimate, but this number is really a solid estimate, solid reflection of how new development impacts our enrollment. We have to calculate about how many homes we expect to be built in the next 5 years, and they're expecting 254 homes per year during that time. We expect that of those almost 1,300 new homes, that we'll see about 378 new students enrolling in school, essentially connected to those new homes. The next thing you do after you identify how many new homes are out there and how many new students you'll receive you have to calculate what the cost would be to house those students. And those are, that's a summary of what those costs would be. Remember, I mentioned that's based on the state's method for estimating school construction cost. It's not realistic, but it's better than nothing. So we'll go through the process. So those are the fees, almost $9 million to house those 378 students. And the next step is to project how many square feet will be built in the city using the estimated construction of about 1,300 homes. How many square feet will be generated in that construction that generates those students, so that you can take all of those costs, divide them by all of those square feet, and come up with a reasonable fee to charge on those new developments. And that's what it comes back to, is about $7.16 per square foot. And that's what the new fee is, $7.16 compared to $6.65. Returning back to your question, President Valencia, about what is the level 2 fee. This isn't a number to add to the level 2 fee, because again, it's an alternate fee. So it lays on top of that level 1 fee, and the developer of a new development is charged that $7.16. Okay, not $7.16 plus $3.62. It lays on top of it. Okay. What's important about this fee is if it is approved by the school board tonight, it goes into effect immediately. Like, we would start charging it if we were open for business. We would start charging it immediately upon the completion of a vote. For all intents and purposes, that means it starts tomorrow. So what that means is, because we provided proper notice, people were aware this was coming. We had a lot of people in the building the last 2 days to pay fees. In fact, on Monday, we collected over $1 million in fees because someone knew that there was an increase coming down the pike, and they started working with Maria Mota in my office right away. When is that going to the school board? What's the new fee going to be? What are my fees going to be based on the development that I'm in the middle of? And they pre-planned, organized their submission to make sure that she could calculate all of those fees, document it all, and run the transaction on Monday. And she closed her door and she worked on that all day on Monday to make sure it was right. And then first thing Tuesday morning, took it to the bank. And so I want to, I share that story just because it's really important that we always keep these fees up to date. It's really important that we continue to communicate as completely as we can with folks so they can make decisions like that and be consumers. Like, I know I want this done on Monday and I'm going to plan for it because this happens immediately. The other reason that's important is the increase in level 1 fees is effective in 60 days. But all that really means is that fee that lays underneath this shifts the balance between what we might call level 1 and what we might call level 2 on those developments. But no matter where we are in that 60-day or 70-day window, they're still paying $7.16. Okay. One of the things I like to share with the school board is this important trend. Every time we get this report, I look back over recent times on what that pupil generation rate has been. I described that for you, where we look at the students who've come out of homes in the last 5 years, permits issued in the last 5 years that are now in areas as our students. And one of the things that's dramatic is how that ratio of students per new home has reduced between the first timeframe I'm presenting here, 2010-11, and now 24-25. You can see it shifts and it drops and it stabilizes and then it drops. More and more, what I see is fewer students coming out of those new developments. And that's in some ways a relief because we're really crowded for space. But in many ways, as Ms. Cordero indicated, it is probably a symptom of the cost of homes, that young families can't necessarily afford a home to rent or a home to own in Santa Maria. And so it's driving down that generation, slowing our enrollment growth compared to where it was back when developers were complaining at our board meetings in 2008, 2009, they were coming to the school board and complaining about our fees. But we had a lot more students coming out of our new homes at that time. So I like to share this with the board every chance I get the new snapshot, because I think it's important to know. It's important to know that that's an impact on our enrollment, and an indicator of what's happening with new homes and new housing. And now I'm ready for questions.
Ms. Cabral?
For this last part that you presented. Excuse me. These fees are a one-time fee on new development.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then on the 716, is that revised next year to account for inflation
So
or the following? Or
in 12 months, we will need to have, within the next 12 months, we will need to have brought back to the school board a new school facility needs analysis report like this one that recalculates that fee. And it's going to look at all of those factors and more that I shared with the school board. So it's going to look at student generation again. It's going to look at costs again. It's going to look at developments on the horizon again. And it's going to take a whole new snapshot. How many new students might those new developments generate? All of that will be updated. And we'll need to have that done within the next 12 months.
Okay.
So in other words, yes,
Yes.
it will reflect what the state board sees, state allocation board sees as the construction cost indexes increase for this time span. So that's what it will look at. Thank you. Mhm.
So is the assumption, since the number of students being, excuse me for saying this, produced out of each new house is decreasing, is that an indication that we have more retirees moving into the community, or any way of really knowing that?
Not from this report. Yeah, it would only be anecdotal to conclude why that's occurring.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say it's that, and I wouldn't have anything to offer as a better alternative based on this report.
Follow-up question, Mr. Beecher, you had said earlier that the fee level one of $3.69 for residential wouldn't be in addition to the $7.16. So does that mean that the $7.16 would replace the $6.69? Is that how that would operate?
Correct.
So therefore, folks moving forward, building ADUs, in the near future, that would be the amount that they'd be paying for per square footage.
Assuming that the additional square footage that's in the ADU is more than 500 square feet.
Gotcha. And then for ADUs that have already been built, let's say over the last 2 years, this isn't retroactive, or is it retroactive? Meaning, would they pay this fee, or it would be whatever the fee was 2 years ago?
The school district has a really good working relationship with the city planning department and also with in essence, all the divisions in the city. And so when the city gets ready to issue a permit, they provide them with, and it's like a affidavit of paid school fees, or a really official sounding word like that. It has the amount of square feet that's reflected in the permit on it. And then it has a line for the affected school districts to sign. So the ones that we get, there's a line for the high school district and there's a line for SMBSD. There's also a line for Orcutt because some of the city has boundary inside Orcutt. But they won't actually issue the permit to the developer or the builder or the contractor until both school districts have signed off that the fees have been fully paid. And so that's what helps us ensure that every new development is charged their appropriate fee, and then they can build. So the answer to your question is, if I created an ADU and received my permit 2 years ago, I already paid my fee that the school board had acted on in advance of me receiving that permit.
So they would pay whatever the fee was 2 years ago, as opposed to this fee that we're potentially voting on today.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
All right. Are there any further questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 2326, adoption of a school facilities need analysis and the establishment of an alternative fee, increasing fees on development projects pursuant to Government Code Section 65995.5 and 65995.7, Level 2, as presented.
And I'll second.
It is moved by Ms. Cabral and seconded by Ms. Cordero that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 23-26, adoption of a school facilities needs analysis and the establishment of an alternative fee, increasing fees on development projects pursuant to Government Code Section 65995.5 and 65995.7 Level 2 as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia.
Aye. Motion carries. Prior to continuing, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess. So we will resume our meeting in 5 minutes. for employee benefits brokerage and consulting services. Mr. Beecher.
Thank you very much, President Valencia. The district has a long history with the principal, Lisa Caputo, with One Digital. She's been with us for a little more than 20 years, providing sound employee benefits advice, aggressive recommendations to help maximize the effectiveness of the investments we make in the employee benefits package. She and her team have always been incredibly trustworthy, creating great rapport with our bargaining unit members, and also with our insurance providers, helping us negotiate agreements with them that create a really excellent benefits package at a very reasonable cost. I've created this slide with a lot of the reasons why I believe this is the right direction for us to head in. Lisa's worked for a couple different firms along the way, with One Digital being the most current provider that has had her as a principal and broker. And this is the first time in more than 20 years that we've actually had a written agreement that spells out what she and her team do for us. It's a really good step, to make it like official and professional and legal. And I was really surprised to find out there wasn't some agreement that originated our whole relationship from the 2003, 2004 timeframe. But it's nice to have this with us now, kind of a lining out of all of the things, services that they will provide and the fees that they charge. And so that's what we're here tonight to request approval from the school board for an estimated amount, because it's all based on the number of employees that we have enrolled in the plan each month, for an estimated cost of about $170,000. And I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? A question I have, Matt, is how do we know that their fees are reasonable? Do we compare their services to other organizations? How does that work, those comparisons, if any?
We haven't done a comparison with other providers. There are a couple other brokers in the area that local districts do use. We actually use that firm, one of those firms, Burnham Benefits. They assist us with some of our Affordable Care Act compliance items. And I haven't requested from them like a structure for a quote on this business, because I've never considered the cost as a factor, based on the relationship that Ms. Caputo and her team have with our employees and our bargaining units, and her ability to respond to their questions directly, if that's their choice, or through Hannah Class in HR or myself, and just the rapport and reputation she has with them. So I haven't reflected on cost. I know that our overall benefits administrator, Sisk, has never brought into question what we're paying as being outlandish. I also know it hasn't changed in 20 years. So whatever fees were back in the 2003, 2004 era, those are the fees we're still paying to One Digital. And I'm not sure that any other provider would be able to make the same representation.
Ms. Cabral?
So would One Digital be like the umbrella for all the health benefits and then retirement and all that, or just health?
Fair enough. They're not involved in the retirement process, whether it might be PERS or STIRS or any of our 403B or 457 offerings. They're not engaged in that piece. They help us with health benefits, with pharmaceutical. They represent us with our dental and vision policies and our critical care illness policy. We have a couple other policy items that are in our benefits package, but they don't represent like the disability provider and the life insurance provider. They provide us some information, help us understand what's happening there. They're really nominal fees and they also haven't changed over time. But they don't represent those plans for us.
Overall, this would be taking over what you mentioned earlier, SIS.
Mhm.
That.
So
would
the
oversee
book of
those.
business with SISC, the Self-Insured Schools of California, and their employee benefits and pharmacy plan. It's Vision Service Plan, VSP, for the vision plan. It's Guardian Dental for the dental plan. It's AFLAC for the critical care illness plan. Those are the firms that she has the relationship with if we're talking about renewal and cost increases for the next year. They also, in line with your question, Ms. Cabral, they also help us make decisions about whether to take that book of business out for quote again to another provider who might not be SISC, who might not be Guardian, who might not be Vision Service Plan, just to make sure that we're getting the best costs, the best prices for those services. They also tell us now's not a good time to go out on the market because we just went out last year and providers get tired of the process of trying to create a new quote because there's a lot of work involved. So in order to make sure that we actually get high quality responses, if we're going to pursue a renewal, they make sure that the time is right for that. We haven't like worn out our welcome as opposed, in regard to asking for a new quote.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the agreement for an estimated $170,000 with One Digital for employee benefits brokerage and consulting services.
Second.
It is moved by Ms. Cordero and seconded by Mr. Hollinshead that the Board of Education approve the agreement for an estimated $170,000 with One Digital for employee benefits brokerage and consulting services as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item J, agreement with Cal Poly Epic Engineering Possibilities in College to provide a one-week residential summer program. Mr. Pantin.
Good evening, board members.
Good
Dr.
evening.
McDuffie, good evening. Cabinet, good evening. And everyone present, good evening. The engineering possibilities in college. They have been a great educational partners with our migrant education in Santa Maria Bonita for about 11, 12 years. We have sent about 40 migrant students to explore and to learn, to be exposed to the university life, and also to learn about the different fields of engineering. Now is another summer again that we are planning to take 40 migrant students in June 30th to July 5th. They will be spending 5 nights and 6 days to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So EPIC has provided migrant students with the opportunity to experience engineering disciplines and consider the possibility of studying engineering in college. The main mission of the engineering possibilities in college is to educate students for careers of service, leadership, and distinction in engineering or other fields by using the learning by doing model. And that's exactly what our 40 wonderful migrant children will be experiences for those 5 nights and 6 days. Any questions?
Any questions from the board, Ms. Cabral, or comments?
Yeah. Does this program, I know we do this every year, correct?
That is correct, yes. We have
Does
done
it
it for about
usually-
11 years.
Does it usually fill with our students?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We usually get a 40 migrant students. Matter of fact, Cal Poly University, it's adding 5 more students free of charge for us to take to the university, yes, this time around.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pantin, but our students spend the night on the university campus, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, exactly. This is a residential program. They, 5 nights and 6 days. They are gonna go to Cal Poly on Sunday around 1 p.m. And they are going to be brought back to Santa Maria on Friday, July 5th, like around 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and move that the Board of Education approve the agreement with Cal Poly Epic to provide a 1-week residential summer program as presented.
And I'll second.
It is moved by Ms. Cabral and seconded by Ms. Cordero that the Board of Education approve the agreement with Cal Poly Epic to provide a 1-week residential summer program as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item K, new agreement with Scholar System by Dr. Victor Rios to provide professional learning for educators, students, and parents. Ms. Lochambu.
Thank you. Good evening, President Valencia, board members, Dr. McDuffie, cabinet, staff and families. I am excited to be here with you guys tonight to share with you and ask for the approval of this new contract with Dr. Rios and the Scholar System. As many of you guys have heard from many of our families or students, El Camino families and students, staff as well, during public comment, some of the challenges that we've been having over at El Camino. Dr. McDuffie and I, the last month or so, have just been exploring and figuring out how do we respond to the challenges and the needs over at El Camino. Through this contract, Dr. Rios and the Scholars team will be on site. Listed on the slide here are the deliverables, and I won't go into details of what each one of those are, but there is a student component, a staff component, and a parent component. Some of you might be wondering, why now? This is not a reaction, a knee-jerk reaction to the concerns over at El Camino, but really this is building the foundation, responding to the needs right now at El Camino, but at the same time, building the foundation as we end the school year and start planning for the new school year. We want to make sure that El Camino is set and off to a strong start in the fall. And so through this program, it is also building the capacity of the staff over at El Camino to come together and really help lead the work. Oftentimes, when consultants come into schools, they're there for a couple of days or hours, and then they're gone. Part of this work here is really building the leadership in the building to carry this work forward into next year. We're also looking at this opportunity as a pilot over at El Camino to see how this works, as we are also aware of some of the other challenges at our other junior highs as well, with the hopes that we're able to bring this into our other junior highs here in San Maria Bonita as well. Just really briefly, the student component. Dr. Rios and his team, with the support of the staff have identified 25 of the challenging students, and Dr. Rios referred to them as at-promise students. In educational realms, oftentimes students are referred to as at risk, but we're going to call them our at-promise students. Really intentional, working with those students, providing some coaching, and really uplifting them as leaders in their environment. Students are given essential life skills. They're also given leadership skills to personally transform and positively influence their peers. For example, today's session with one of the facilitator was on conflict resolution. Finding common grounds that they have with their peers. When they have conflicts, how do they resolve those conflicts? So really giving them skills to be successful at school. The teacher or the educator or the staff component, and we're not just talking about certificated staff. We're talking about both certificated staff as well as our classified staff. We've also asked our community partners, vendors that we partner with to also participate in the training as well. So through the staff professional learning, really blending inspiration, connections, and applications, some of the topics that are being covered are around the damage of deficit thinking and how that impacts our students. Bloom, and that is something that the research that Dr. Rios has done is synchronizing love and accountability. So if you're familiar in education, if you are familiar with Maslow and Bloom's and how those two come together, because you kind of need both. Other topics covered with educators will be around the power of education or educators, connections before content. It's really about building those relationships. The parent component, which we have a date, and I will make sure that you have that date so that if you're interested, please come join us. That will be May 21st with the light dinner at 5:30, the program starting at 6 o'clock. Topics that will be covered with our parents will be around multi-generational communications, developing a growth mindset in parenting, parenthood, parenting styles, positive guidance and discipline, creating a college-going culture with your children as well. And so I invite you to also participate in that with our families. And so with that, I will take any questions.
Ms. Cordero?
Will all of these services be provided by the end of this school year, or is this moving into next year?
This will be done by the end of the school year. And so if you see on the slide here, there's a 4.5 hour kickoff with the students, and that was done 2 weeks ago. Follow that up on the same day. We had a 2-hour session, professional learning with the whole El Camino staff, down to our custodial staff and our nutrition staff, with follow-ups with the students, and that's once a week, 1 hour. So that's taking place on Wednesdays from 12:10 to 1:10. So I was there with them today. And you all are welcome to come and observe as well. So we've completed two follow-up sessions with students. We have 2 more. So next Wednesday and the following Wednesday. The staff session, aside from the 2-hour that we've already had, we've identified a small group of El Camino staff, and this is the leadership group that will carry this work forward into next year. So really intentional once a week, Dr. Rios and his team during PLC on Thursdays for 1 hour. We dive into the different topics and really practicing, because we also have access to 9 modules that could be used next year with staff and students as well. And so really building the capacity of that small group so that they can carry this work forward. But the service will be completed by the end of this month.
Do you happen to know when the parent or community presentation will be?
Yes, May 21st.
May
May 21st.
21.
21, yes.
Okay.
And again, the time, 5:30 to 6 is a light dinner that we'll be providing for our families. And then the program starts at 6 to 7:30. It's a 90-minute presentation. And it will be at the El Camino gym.
Mr. Hollingshead?
There's also a section on the 22nd, though. Is that a 1 hour follow-up session you were talking about on the 22nd?
Yes.
And what time is that?
So the student session is from 12:10 to 1:10 in the cafeteria. And then Thursdays for the small group of El Camino staff during the PLC times 3 to 4. And it's in one of the teachers' classroom, and I don't remember the classroom number, but the teacher's name is Allie, and she's a science teacher. So if you want to stop by the office, ask for directions to Allie's room.
Yeah, and I just wanted to compliment and thank you but also the participatory students and staff at El Camino, because in talking with some of them, the sustainability piece and having the intention of this carrying forward and becoming something that's ingrained and not, like you said, a reaction has been really had a significant effect on them. And so gotten positive feedback in that respect. And I know that when, one of the things that Dr. Rios talks about a lot when he gives talks is about the connection and that connection, the connection that made the profound difference in his life and where he was at the time. And so I think that's one of the things also that our El Camino staff has been wanting to do is make connections with their kids,
Yes.
right? But also their families. So I think that's something that we, with the teachers teaching other teachers or leaders, and that sustainability piece that we want to see if we can carry throughout. There are a lot of things that we can get from just that connection. And I think the surveys we do don't always necessarily reflect how well we're doing that or not well. We can't get a feeling for that. So I think if we have intention with that specifically and a model and then our own variations of that model, what have you, I think that's going to be really profoundly effective also everywhere.
Yes,
But so
agreed.
thank you guys to you guys and them as well.
And I will share that just to that point of just building the capacity. We have that small group of El Camino teachers participating during the student session as well. So I want to just do a shout out to TNL and all of the departments under Ed Services. They have been providing staff to cover the classroom so that the teachers could go participate for that 1 hour. One of the El Camino teacher came to me last week because part of Dr. Rios's work is really about telling the stories, making those connections. One of the teacher came up to me at the end and said, Maishu, as I'm thinking about planning for next year, so like their minds are turning already. This is what we as a staff need to do more is tell and share our own stories. Because as I'm standing here listening to the stories of the facilitator, I'm thinking about my own stories. And I've gone through that and our kids need to hear that. And there's so much power in that because these are the staff where the students see every day. And how often do they actually have time to really engage and learn about each other and their life stories? So it was really inspiring for me to just see the teachers making those connections and thinking forward about what they would, as a staff, what they would like to do moving forward next year.
Are there any further comments or questions from the board? Something that Mr. Holland comments also reminded me of is I really appreciate how culturally relevant this support is. Dr. Rios, from my understanding, relates personally to the background of many of our students. He, grew up in a low income background as an example. And just like many youth today, have those temptations of getting involved in gangs. And so I wasn't really thinking about this before until, John started mentioning a little bit about the things that we've been exposed to because he's presented at some of the school board conferences that we've been to. And so I feel really appreciative of that because that piece often gets overlooked is the facilitators themselves, the people that are working with our young people, how much experience do they have at a personal level, and I think that's going to hopefully aid in the effectiveness of this work. I mean, also that what they're doing is research based. I mean, we're working with, college professors, and so and other staff, of course, that he works with. So I also want to just commend the emphasis on the mindset work, because without the mindset work, I've had lots of conversations with Dr. McDuffie about this as well, and he's, really, really cognizant and focused on that as well. As without that mindset work, none of the great things that we want to do will be able to flourish, right? If we view our young people and we view each other from a deficit lens, we're not going to be able to tap into the assets that all of us have, particularly our young people. And unfortunately, we know sometimes in news stories, it's the fights that catch the headlines, right? It's, those are the kind of the topics that get elevated, but we know every day wonderful things are happening in our schools. And I did get some comments from some of our staff at El Camino that did say, hey, we understand that there's challenges, but I feel like El Camino is a wonderful place to work. We have wonderful young people. And so I just want to make sure that we are not inadvertently criminalizing our young people, right? By shifting our attention with just that lens. And so I really appreciate that that's a big part of what we're doing, as well as creating that, that college going culture with our staff, our students and families. So thank you all very much for that important work.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comments or questions, may I have a motion?
I'll go ahead and move that the Board of Education approve the agreement with Scholar System for Professional Learning and Empowering Solutions for educators, students, and parents as presented.
So the amended version was ratified?
Oh, sorry. Yes, let's see.
And I'll second that with the amended
amendment.
word ratify.
It is moved by Ms. Cabral and seconded by Ms. Cordero that the Board of Education approve the agreement with Scholar System for Professional Learning and Empowering Solutions for educators, students, and parents as ratified. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 12, discussion items. Item A, discussion of projects to be included in a possible general obligation bond measure. Mr. Beecher.
Thank you very much, President Valencia. The item for discussion tonight is about the revisiting the fiscal aspects of a potential school bond. In December, the board was provided some information by Lori Ranieri and Keith Weaver of Government Financial Services Joint Powers Authority. I just wanted, because it's been so long and we're really close to the point where we'll be considering a draft ballot measure, I wanted to just touch base on some of those factors from the presentation they shared with us. And that's what I was just talking about. So again, the way that school bonds kind of come together is you have to establish like the expected tax rate. So the bond tax rate is something that compares the debt service amounts of a potential school bond in connection to the district's underlying property values assessed valuation. Because each property in the school district will pay its pro rata share based on its individual assessed value, not market value. And so this is an important thing to keep in mind as we talk about the parameters of a potential school bond. Something else to keep in mind is they shared with us the growth in that assessed valuation. The total value of property in the school district's boundary is growing in part because there are more and more new properties, commercial and residential, and in part because people are purchasing homes for a higher price than the properties were originally purchased for. And so that creates an uptick in the value of the underlying property within the district as well. And you can see it's since 2014, the rate has averaged about 4%, about 6% since 2014. I thought it would be wise for us to reflect on the information they shared about Measure T. You can see that Measure T over time, the total amount assessed for debt service has dropped from about $25, just over $25 per 100,000 to about $19, just over $19 per 100,000. And again, when we're talking about that $19 per 100,000, that's an amount that is assessed by the property assessor's office in conjunction with amounts that the treasurer's office forecasts as being necessary to make the debt service payment on the amounts outstanding for Measure T. And frankly, for every single general obligation bond that is out there in Santa Barbara County, they make this same calculation to make sure they're all within their statutory requirements and they collect all the money they'll need to make those debt service payments on a timely basis. The point of this slide is the reason that the assessed valuation has fallen is that the underlying debt and the resources needed to pay it back, those assumptions were all based on conservative assumptions, which provides a little bit of a relief And then also assessed valuation has grown quite a bit since 2014. On this slide, what this shows is the amounts being assessed for not only measure T, which is the highlighted green bar furthest to the right at $19.39 per assessed per 100,000 of assessed valuation. I also put our neighbors. Right next to us is the Santa Maria Joint Union High School District with the bright green bar. A little further over, you see the darker green bar, that's Orcutt Union School District. And then a little further over is Guadalupe. And these are districts that also serve students within our valley. They are part of the group that superintendent meets with on a regular basis to make sure we're all in alignment as we're making big decisions for our entire community. But I thought it would be really helpful to see the amount that the Santa Maria Bonita School District has outstanding, if you will, as far as general obligation bonds we're asking the community to pay for in relation to how our neighbors are also addressing their facility needs with potential general obligation bonds. With the point being that our number is quite a bit lower than in our neighboring school districts. There are legal limits, and I've been talking about them already. The taxing capacity means that we cannot charge any more than $30 per 100,000 on a 55% Proposition 39 bond. And then also there's an overall bonding capacity that limits the amount of bonds outstanding to 1.25% of the assessed valuation. And so the district assessed value approximates 11 billion, which comes back to about $145 million in bonding capacity. So the total amount that we could potentially have access to is that 145 million. We already have dollar amounts outstanding for Measure T. Thought it would also be helpful to reach back to the January presentation from Dr. McClarney, where they actually polled specific amounts to see how a potential voter might respond. What you can see here is at the 30%, $30 per 100,000, there was still majority support at 52%, where people thought definitely yes or probably yes, based on $30 per square foot. Or I'm sorry, I'm stuck on developer fees per 100,000. And then at $24 per 100,000, there was a little bit more support, 2% more support at definitely yes or probably yes. And again, these are things that we're keeping in mind as we're making choices about bond sizing. So I wanted to make sure and bring that back to the surface as we consider a potential ballot measure. More important is when that question got translated to actual fiscal impact. And so the question was changed from $30 per square foot and $24 per 100,000. It's not that late, but I feel like it must be late because I'm not using my right words. The $92 per year, we still saw very strong support at 60.8%. Where the bond approval threshold is at 55%. So for $92 per year, there was strong support. And then also, if you look at that, the $58 per 100,000, we gained another 8.6 points in the definitely yes. Some of that was borrowed from the probably yes. Okay, so what this demonstrates is that for even the maximum amount, the likely voter would still support Santa Maria Bonita School District General Obligation Bond. And for these purposes, the median home price is about $306,000. So Lori Ranieri and Keith Weaver also shared a sample bond model. So with a lot of underlying assumptions about assessed valuation growth and potential market rates, yields and costs and things. They came up with 72 million as a bond amount that would meet the requirements of the statute. And then a funding of about 24 million every other year to match the requirements of ensuring that we're receiving the dollars and spending those dollars within 3 years of receiving them. Again, the point of a school bond is to create the authorization to access those funds in a general obligation bond. We then go out and do issuances by series to actually create the debt instrument and have access to the cash. The whole debt doesn't occur all at once. We actually issue those over time. In this example, 24 million every other year. So this model fits within those requirements. It's less than the bonding capacity, and it's a little bit less than that $30 per 100,000 for making the debt service payments. I always like to make sure that we discuss that there are protections in place when we're describing a potential school bond. Before the authorized amount that we can actually assess as a school district is limited to that $30 per 100,000. So that limits the impact on taxpayers. And then also after the fact, we'll have to, again, create a citizens bond oversight committee as we did for Measure T to make sure and provide them a transparent view of how we're spending those dollars and making sure with that citizens bond oversight committee that spending is in alignment with the approved ballot measure language in the project list. So having revisited some of the financial aspects of a potential bond measure, I'm wondering if there are any questions the board has that we can make sure and ensure those comments and questions in our work to create a draft ballot measure for consideration at the end of May.
Ms. Cordero?
So our bond measure would be for 72 million?
In this example, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
okay. And our bonding capacity is 118?
So our bonding capacity is 145 million.
Okay.
We have 40 million that is still outstanding from Measure T. So we have available to us about 100 million. We can't access it all at once.
No.
Because of the $30 per 100,000 limitation, but we can access 72 million within those limitations.
Okay.
Again, we've discussed our facility master plan that describes needs that far exceed 72 million. But this is an important part of our process of making progress towards that plan, addressing the priorities that it lists, and then also making sure that we qualify for the state match that we described with our level 2 presentation to leverage those dollars to create even more dollars for us to invest on our campuses.
Can we build a school with 24 million?
No. No.
Okay.
But that's why there's 3 installments of 24 million, because with the rest of it, we can build a school. We also have dollars that are already in the bank, state match that was collected from Measure T in excess of 18 million that we're investing in some other ways, but in many ways holding on to make sure that we can purchase property, create designs, and then get started on construction, adding to the dollars from a general obligation bond.
So with the 24 million, would we be able to purchase land and begin the process of building, or do we have to wait until all or at least 2 of the segments?
I wouldn't recommend waiting. I think
Okay.
as soon as we can get the stars to align to bring this together, we would be drawing on a school bond, if it's approved, we'd be drawing on the 18 million in state match that we collected. We'd be submitting for reimbursement for anything that would qualify for reimbursement from the state to bring that project to fruition as soon as possible. We know the need is great and it's looming. I mean, our enrollment growth is coming. We know that recent experience is that every year school construction gets a lot more expensive. Our prior experience was that every year school construction got more expensive. Now it gets a lot more expensive. And so in my mind, again, I want to be clear, the 24 million every other year is a model. We could take more smaller chunks. We could take some of those chunks more quickly. And so we would build those series, issue those series based on our need.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies
Thank you.
for me.
Mr. Hollinshead?
In the unlikely possibility that it actually comes to fruition, if there was a state school bond, that wouldn't have any effect. It would strictly be our bonding capacity, right? Like the money from a state school bond would be in addition to whatever we were able to get through our bonding capacity, correct?
Correct. There wouldn't be an impact on our individual district bonding capacity if a state school bond was passed. No.
Ms. Cabral?
And I don't know if I missed it, over how long period is the bond for? So on the taxpayers side, how long will I be paying this bond for?
Generally, the term is around 30 years, between 25 and 30, depending on the circumstances. So yeah, it'd be pretty long term.
Yeah. And then once approved, knock on wood, it would take effect tax season 25, 26, property taxes for 25, 26.
It would take effect as soon as there were amounts outstanding from that authorization. So the action that occurs in November 5th is that the voters 55% plus one support the school bond. That allows us to have that authorization. Then we work with GFS JPA and with ORIC, our bond counsel, to actually create an issuance against that authorization. And when that occurs, and there is actually a debt amount, that's when the treasurer's office knows, in order to make this debt service payment, I need to collect $29.50 per 100,000. If it's only the 24 million, they might just say it's $18 per 100,000 now. When that next series goes out, we're going to move it up to $21 per 100,000. And when that next series goes out is when we'll get to the full $29.82 per 100,000. But until we issue those bonds, there won't be an assessment.
Okay.
But as I mentioned, these needs are out there. They're looming. I'm expecting that we're going to right away start addressing items on the project list to make progress and take advantage of wherever the construction cost is at that time, take advantage of that lower cost.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And again, as an accessory to Mr. Hollinshead's question, if a state school bond is passed, that creates cash at the state level to match the projects that we've got in place for pre-K, TK, and full day K, and as well as our modernization funding that we're requesting reimbursement for on our air conditioning projects that were in the agenda tonight. And then anything we do towards creating new classrooms using the money from the school bond and a potential new school.
How, if at all, are interest rates connected to this? So does since it's over a few years that we would receive that 72 million, should the bond pass, how do interest rates come into play? Because I know we're operating in a higher interest rate environment right now compared to where we were a couple of years ago.
So depending on the way that the bonds are structured, and I'm not an expert enough in how this works to give you a really, really good answer, but I'm going to do my best. As interest rates increase between now and a potential issuance, what happens is it limits our ability to incur that debt based on the $30 per 100,000. It doesn't necessarily affect our overall bonding capacity, that $100 million number, because it is what it's going to be based on how the treasurer's office assesses new property, whether it's built or whether it's bought or whether it's just being increased by whatever the inflation factor is that they put into the rolls every year. That number is independent. But if interest rates go up, that drives up the cost of debt service. And it's that debt service number that's connected to the $30 per 100,000 limitation. And so if it starts to bump up against that, it limits the amount of the $100 million in capacity that we can access at this time. So again, we will work with GFS JPA to ensure that the assumptions that we use to build that structure, whether it's the 72 million or another number, that's going to be based on conservative assumptions that assume a little bit of growth in assessed valuation, and then also addresses potential market fluctuation in the interest rate amounts. The good news is the Santa Maria Bonita School District has an excellent credit rating. And so no matter what happens to interest rates, we're going to get a high quality number. We're going to get really close to the best number that's available to a school district as it relates to school bonds.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, the Board of Education acknowledge receipt of the discussion of projects to be included in a possible general obligation bond measure as presented. Item B, enhancing Santa Maria Bonita School District curriculum. Mrs. Loftus.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Tonight, I would like to provide you with an update specific to the enhancements that have been made or those that are still being made in an effort to further diversify our curriculum and our learning material or learning opportunities in SMBSD. As you know, our first objective in our strategic plan is that we would want our students to discover who they are, their passion, purpose, all of that through meaningful educational opportunities. And the teaching and learning team has really honed in on two strategies, the two that are in red, providing structures, facilities, and specifically resources to support inclusive learning experiences and focusing on nurturing the whole child. I'd like to start this evening with ethnic studies, which is a year-long elective offering at our junior highs. The ethnic studies course was designed and piloted last year at one of our junior highs and then expanded to our 4 junior highs this year. The curriculum used in our ethnic studies course was or is really a grassroots created curriculum opportunity for our students. The resources that our teachers have used to create this curriculum include Facing History and Ourselves, iCivics, and Learning for Justice, as well as many others. The learning over the course of the year has been divided into 3 big ideas broken across the 3 different trimesters. As you can see, they start with really getting to know themselves, who they are in their local community, what it is to fit into America, and then what it is to fit into the larger world and to really focus on advocating for themselves and others. The ethnic studies teachers have been supported throughout this school year by our History TOSA. Their support plan started prior to the current school year beginning when the TOSA brought the current year's ethnic studies teachers together to do a deep dive into the curriculum as it had been designed so far during the pilot year. They also meet as a PLC on a monthly basis. They've created a Google Classroom where they share resources across the sites. And they've also attended some professional learning specific to strands around ethnic studies at the California Council for Social Studies conference. Looking forward to finding additional learning opportunities in the next school year, but really happy to say that the team is focused on building a really comprehensive model middle school program for ethnic studies. Currently, the state offers a model program for high school, but there is no such thing that exists for a middle school or a junior high design. In reaching out to other school districts where we thought there might be something in existence, we found that it had not yet been created for the junior highs. And so really groundbreaking work that the team has been focused on this past school year and the previous year. Again, this is our first year of full implementation across our 4 junior highs, and I'm happy to share that this year, with the work of the History TOSA, we've been able to partner with MyCop, Mixteco Community Organizing Project, to bring in guest speakers throughout the course of the school year. The students have visited the Museum of Tolerance, and as the teachers are planning for the upcoming school year, they are taking their curriculum and learning opportunities and putting a project-based learning design in place and really looking to tweak their instructional strategies that way to increase student engagement. The course is, again, a year-long elective that is available or can be made available to any student in 7th or 8th grade. Another area or body of work that the team has been focused on has been looking at our history, our social sciences curriculum, and thinking about where in our curriculum do we have opportunities to pause and highlight certain populations, marginalized populations of peoples. And so that work has occurred over the course of this school year. The team looked at the curriculum that we had, and they looked at where are we currently highlighting? Where are we currently highlighting diversity? Where are we currently highlighting marginalized peoples within our curriculum as it is designed organically? And then after identifying where those opportunities already were, the next layer was to identify opportunities where we could either highlight culturally relevant leaders, or we could inject additional opportunities to highlight other contributions that have been made by marginalized communities. The team, once identifying where all of these opportunities were, then started looking at curating resources to support that. So whether that be a video resource, a read aloud book that a teacher could use as part of that instruction, or different just inquiry-based lessons that are available through one of the entities that I shared earlier, all of those things, and then mapping it out over the course of the year for each grade level. That resource map talks about exactly where the learning opportunity already exists and where we would like to enhance it or build in additional opportunities. The resources that have been gathered for the teachers or curated for them include a lot of read aloud books, like some of the ones that you see displayed on the screen. There are also many lessons that have been pulled from the California History Social Science Project, Facing History and Ourselves, Digital Inquiry Group, and the Gilder Lehrman Institute, as well as many others. These resources have already been ordered for our classrooms, and we expect them to be in place and being used in the 24-25 school year. We also wanted to create a new baseline for our classroom libraries in our elementary schools. In order to do that, there was a team pulled together. The collections for the libraries were curated by this district classroom library team. This team also sought input from teachers across the district, received input from our bilingual instructional assistants, our library media clerks, other TOSAs, and DLI team members. And their goal was to create a classroom library that was of high interest culturally relevant, and books ultimately that our students would enjoy. On this screen, you see the areas that we really wanted to have represented in our classroom libraries across the district, across all grade levels. We wanted to make sure that we were elevating Latino voices, celebrating girls of color, that there were culturally responsive text collections within the greater library, girls in STEAM, immigrant and refugee experiences, disability and neurodiversity, LGBTQ+, Indigenous peoples' voices, equity and inclusion, Black history, tolerance and acceptance, kindness, empathy, and compassion, that diverse people and diverse places were represented, and characters are peoples from South and East Asia, as well as African Americans. And then, of course, books that are supportive of social emotional development as well. And of course, we also included many classics that were available in both English and Spanish, and put a lens specifically on our DLI classrooms. Our DLI program will receive books that are a blend of Spanish and English based on the DLI or the language acquisition model at each particular grade level. So in our youngest grades, where it's a 90% Spanish, 10% English, the libraries are 90% Spanish, 10% English. Along those same lines, we wanted to ensure that our non-DLI classrooms, so that greater library that I was just speaking to, that list on the previous slide, that as many as possible authentic Spanish texts were also represented. The team was able to identify about 10% of the books in the overall collection are authentic Spanish texts. I would share that the number of books in these classroom libraries is around 500 per classroom, depending on the grade level. So quite a robust library, quite a huge investment being made. We know that often teachers gather books, they collect books over the course of their teaching career. If you're a new teacher, you might not have any books in your classroom library unless you were lucky enough to inherit from a previous teacher. We also know that as time goes on, we want to update what's in our libraries, and having this opportunity, it's super exciting for our elementary teachers. Another significant investment that SMBSD makes is in our school libraries as a whole. A couple of years ago, the library team put together a collection development policy, and the crutch of that policy is really intentionality. And so you see on the screen some of the specific areas of focus. We want our students to see themselves in their libraries. We want to ensure that they, their families, and their cultures are presented highly. And so we focus on curriculum that highlights our migrant community, that's representative of all of our students. You see several groups listed. We also have specialized libraries that we curate for the DLI programs. We look for text that enhances or extends our curriculum, what's happening in the classroom, and that we're making sure that we're highlighting non-traditional families as well as other groups as well. Annually, we invest about $4,000 per school site. That equals about 160 books-ish a year going into each of our libraries across the district. Again, that's every single year. We also had, at a previous LCAP meeting a couple of years ago, a desire to boost or really infuse our school libraries with Spanish text. And so that was done at that time a couple of years ago. And at that time that was about 800 titles being added to each of our classroom libraries, or I'm sorry, each of our school libraries across the district. I also don't want to walk past our digital collections with Sora. One of the things that came out of the pandemic was looking really carefully at resources that we can access digitally, and an investment that we've continued to make is in our Sora collection. Students and their families are able to digitally access these library collections. It's like going to the public library on your computer. And in our collection for SMBSD, there are about 17,000 titles. 20% of those, so somewhere around 4,000, are in Spanish. Another 3,000 or so are highlighting diverse communities. And we also build curated shelves, if you will, that we focus or highlight and put in the forefront. It's like if you were to walk into a library, you see a display. If you were to log on to Sora at that particular month, you would see a display highlighting different communities that we highlight specifically. Like, for example, currently we're highlighting Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, not just in our classroom with resources that we share with our teachers, but also in our digital library collections. From me, I would like to thank our Plan Alignment Office for identifying the specialized funding to make all of these investments that I've spoken to this evening, to the team who has worked over the last 2 years to really analyze the resources we have and to curate the lists that I shared with you tonight, to the IMC staff who continues to focus every year on enhancing the libraries, our school libraries, and of course to our teachers who bring these experiences to life in the classroom. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board or comments? Ms. Cordero?
It sounds extremely thorough.
Thank you. The team has worked really hard and done a really nice job.
Yeah.
Some follow-up questions that I have are, as you all were looking at some of the areas to enhance the diversity of the curriculum, did you all look at any data specifically, for example, looking at our social science courses or our English courses, on what percentage of their curriculum included some of the 4 core groups in ethnic studies, for example, which are typically Asian Americans, African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans? Did you all get any data around what is our current number right now, if you will? So what is the likelihood of our young people to see those groups reflected in the curriculum in English or history courses?
The work that I'm sharing with you this evening is specific to history. And while I can't give you a percentage, I can tell you every single instance that it occurs for every single grade level. And I would say on average, there are 15 to 20 opportunities throughout the year that it's built in organically into the curriculum. We're at least doubling that, if not tripling that, in some instances with the resources that we've been able to identify to add throughout the course of the school year. Our next project next year is to really look at our ELA curriculum. Our ELA curriculum is half of it is really science content, and the other half is social studies or history content. There's a great deal of overlap, specifically in history. And so I could see some of it doing double duty between the 2 content areas, but there is also very likely opportunity to further enhance that learning in ELA as well. So I would anticipate a similar project to occur.
And when you mentioned our library books, do you all happen to have any data around, now that you all have created these enhancements in the likelihood of our young people to see themselves, what those percentages might be? So out of the, let's say, 1,000 books we have in the library, do we know if like 5% address African American history, or 10% address Asian American history? Do we have any of that data available right now?
Not to that type of a granular level. We can certainly pull by title. What we found when we tried to look at that before is that so much is unknown in just a title. And so we were not able to come up with what I would call a really accurate percentage broken down in that way. But I do know that as we are purchasing and curating lists every single year, it's on the forefront.
Excellent. And I do recall from seeing like obsolete books, that we've, declared obsolete over the years. Some of those titles I remember from when I was in elementary school, right? And books that, I enjoyed, but that were not, they were what they referred to as windows, right? Opportunities for me to learn to another culture, as opposed to an opportunity to learn about, my own culture. And so it is good to see that some of those obsolete books are now like, now are finally reflecting our students, because I can't say that that was the case when I was in elementary school for most of the time. Another follow-up question that I have is, we as a board established a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy about 2 years ago, approximately, affirming, right, our commitment to having diversity, not just with our staff, but also in our curriculum. And so one of the things I'm curious about is, have you all discussed ways that we can further institutionalize these best practices? Because we know from research, right, that it inspires our young people to do better in school, leads to higher self-esteem for our students, right? So we know that there's, so many studies that confirm this work. So when we are no longer here as board members, years from now, how can we institutionalize these best practices so that they continue when we're no longer here? Have you all had conversations regarding that?
We have specifically, I love that question, just really solidifying that this best practice continues. And one of the places that this lives in a written protocol type manner that you are suggesting is with our curriculum adoption process. And so as we are adopting curriculum in our district, it's always been a focus. It's certainly a focus of the state when they are vetting and providing us a list of materials that meet those requirements, but that's a requirement. You can always go above and beyond. And so when we think about our adoption process in SMBSD, highlighting the needs of our multilingual learners and certainly making sure that our curriculum is as diverse as it possibly can be is built into our rubric design. And it's weighted as well, meaning that that section counts for more than some of the other sections of the rubric that has been developed. And so continuing with that tradition of using those rubrics that are built in that way is one way that Ed Services is ensuring that we continue to put a lens or a focus on that goal.
And do we know how many of our students are currently enrolled in these ethnic studies courses at the middle school level?
I do not have that number available at the top of my mind, but I can certainly reach out and get that information for you and provide it in a board update.
Thank you. And do you know for these courses also, do they focus on the four focus groups for these ethnic studies classes? So are they focusing on African Americans, Asian Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans? Do you
Yes,
know if
sir.
that's the case?
It is.
Excellent. And then what support services are you all like tapping into? For example, at the high school level, they've consulted with educators, for example, that have been doing this work for a couple of years before us. So there's an organization called ARE, the Association of Mexican American Educators. They were providing some consulting support because what we know is most teachers don't necessarily have a background in ethnic studies. Many of our teachers have a passion for making our curriculum inclusive, however, haven't had that background. So it was really, helpful to us to have those folks working with us. Have you all been able to partner or consult with any folks like that?
Not beyond what I've shared so far this evening. It is on the list when we're looking for how we're supporting our ethnic studies in the upcoming school year is digging in and building those partnerships. So one of the things that our team is doing is reaching out to the high school district specifically to get the names of the contacts, like for example, the organization that you just mentioned.
Excellent. And then do we know how the classes are going? Like how for the students that are in the courses, are we collecting any data on, how the students are doing in the courses?
The teachers are very much enjoying the courses, as are the students. Anecdotally, we're being told that it's engaging. The students are highly invested in the content and in the learning. They're also taking feedback from the students all year long on what's working, what's really resonating with them, because it's a living curriculum that we're looking to adjust and continue enhancing with the feedback that we're being given by both teachers and students.
And it's very much appreciated because, doing this with fidelity is not easy, and so I empathize with our staff who are attempting to do this well. It requires constant, learning. And so it is really essential, right, that our staff that are leading this work are invested in the work, right? Sometimes in teaching, it's, hey, you got to teach this course or you got to teach that grade, but it is really, really crucial, right, that we have the right folks leading this work. And when I mean right folks, it's just folks that are willing to learn, right? And that have a passion for enhancing the diversity of the curriculum. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good fit for the educator or for our students. And we've seen that happen, you know, in different areas where this is being implemented. So of course, we have to be extremely intentional and on how we do this work, because we know that our students will benefit from it. But the opposite will also happen, where if if the staff aren't provided the training that they need, our young people are not going to find it as engaging as we know it could be. So I definitely want to encourage our staff, like yourselves, to continue to support teachers so that they feel confident and are able to attend the trainings that they need to attend to, bring in the consultants that need to be brought in, so that we can have like a thriving ethnic studies program, because that's what it can be, and I'm sure will be with time.
Agreed. Thank you for that and for that support. I would just share that the junior high principals, the educators who are teaching the courses are educators who have sought out the opportunity to teach the course. They're very invested in the program, the quality of the program, and the impact that they're having.
Excellent. Mr. Hollinshead.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Mr. Valencia. You remind me of the importance of diversity, the mirror and the window, right? Both. It's because I think, you know, as you recall, and probably the rest of the board recall from the diversity symposium that was at Taylor several years ago, that was the more effective and profound effect of this work was the diversity aspect, seeing all of those different folks, and not only through our own lens, but hopefully through their lens, and that sense of empathy and compassion that creates, and the interest. The other thing that made me think of is, was there something in one of the earlier slides, or the slide perhaps maybe around the actual junior high curriculum, about a move towards project-based learning? Because I feel like that's one of the things where the fidelity impact comes in, but also the student input comes in, and the perpetuation of the impact of what we're talking about is when you get to the project-based learning model, I feel like that's going to begin to make this grow and flourish even more, because then the students are starting to participate in what they're wanting to learn, what they're seeking to learn, and then what they're going through, and refining what they've been given, you know, and really kind of putting that all together. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that impacts this as well. And I appreciate the really thoughtful extent that you went beyond the junior high, right? And down through, and tried to make things just really well embedded, so that hopefully all our kids, smallest of small minorities or whatever, can see themselves somewhere. And then hopefully in Dr. Rios's, you know, connection piece can maybe make a connection somewhere too. So I really appreciate the depth and breadth of the work you've done.
Thank you.
And your group, your team.
Yes, great team.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? All right. I can also affirm that our young people in Bonita that are joining us at Santa Maria High School, where I have, you know, the pleasure of working with them. You know, when I asked them, hey, what do you, right now it's Asian American Heritage Month, so we're especially intentional about including that curriculum. And, you know, a few of my students said that they can recall learning about Asian Americans in their elementary, middle school experience, but many of them also said that they could not. And when I asked them, you know, if they feel that that's valuable to their education, you know, most of my students said, yeah, because it allows for, one of my students said it allows for humility, that sense of like, hey, I might not know exactly what you've been through, but I'm curious and I want to know, so that when I do meet you and do interact with people like you, like we can be friends, we can be connected, as opposed to what often happens when we don't learn about each other, which is we become suspicious or have stereotypes about each other and divisions. So never ceases to surprise me how impressive our young people are at fully understanding the value of this work. Our young people today inviting us to the open house, right? Share that with us. They're the ones that are spearheading the work and saying, hey, we want more culture, we want more unity. So I feel so excited about what the future can look like, when our young people are leading this work. So all we got to do is get out of their way and actually implement what they're asking us to do. So I'm really excited to see what that future will bring for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you.
So seeing no further questions or comments from the Board of Education acknowledged receipt of the discussion of enhancing Santa Maria Bonita School District curriculum as presented. Item 13, new business. Mr. Hollinshead, are there any items for you? Ms. Cabral? Okay. Ms. Cordell? And none for me as well at this time. Item 14, Board and Superintendent reports. Mr. Hollinshead? None for Mr. Hollinshead at this time.
None for me either, but happy Mother's Day this weekend. And then, of course, happy Teachers Appreciation Week, month, to the nurses as well, speech pathologists, and our classified staff.
I
Ms.
know,
Cordell?
I know this has been testing at most all of our school sites in the majority of our grades. So I'm sure teachers are feeling hopefully some relief from being able to check that off of their list. And I often wondered when I was a working professional, why we waited until May to acknowledge the work that everyone does when so many are pretty exhausted, and even more so now because of increased demands and the many changes. But again, a very, very sincere thank you and much appreciation to all who work day to day to make it work and make it happen for our students, because they are our future.
For me, I want to continue to highlight the good work that is taking place in our schools. I really appreciated hearing from Mr. Pantin today about the EPIC program and how it literally puts our young people on a college campus, right, at the elementary level, is it, or middle school level? So, I mean, just the research that I've seen around the benefit that is provided to our young people when they get to set foot on the college campus is tremendous. You can't be what you can't see. So if our young people aren't visiting college campuses, if they're not interacting with college students, many of our young people, like myself, are first generation college students. So, I couldn't go to my tío necessarily, or, a lot of my cousins for those models. But I do recall at the high school level when I was in Mecha, that they would take us to UCSB and I would have a chance to interact with Latino college students. And that really inspired me to see myself as a future college student. And when I was a student at the University of California, Berkeley, I was a part of an organization there that would bring kindergarten students to UC Berkeley. They called it Kinder Caminata, which is a reminder to me that you are never too young to be able to, visit these college campuses. So one of the conversations that I've been having with Dr. McDuffie is whenever our schools go on field trips, say to a science museum or anything like that, how can we couple that with a university field trip? Even if it's just like a 1 hour, component to their trip. But to me, it would be a missed opportunity for us to, for example, go to Santa Barbara to a wonderful botanical garden, but yet not couple that with the trip to UCSB. And the more opportunities our young people have to visit these campuses, the better, and at different grade times. I believe I've mentioned that in Greenfield, their school district has it so that every year their young people go to a different university, and it's embedded into what they do every single year. So it's kind of like a guaranteed curriculum. And so I want to continue to encourage our staff to find ways, right, to incorporate more university field trips for our young people. so that they can be inspired to see themselves at that level. Statistically, we're not in a place yet where probably we want to be. Around 1 in 3 has been our average for a while at Santa Maria High School of our students meeting the A through G requirements, meaning that they're eligible to apply to a four-year university. So those 1 in 3 odds are not quite right what we want to see, especially when the state odds are closer to 50%, right? On average, 1 in every 2 of our students are eligible to go to a university. But here locally at one of our local high schools, we're not quite there yet. So this is why I think it's so important to continue to find those opportunities to visit universities. Another item that was on our list today of topics to discuss was our comprehensive school safety plan. That was a part of our consent agenda items. I appreciate the work that our schools are doing to ensure that our young people feel safe, especially when emergencies occur. And I was curious, so I asked one of my newcomer students and said, hey, when the announcements are made regarding emergencies, whether it's a fire drill or whether it's a emergency lockdown, do you ever feel lost when these things are happening? Because oftentimes the announcements are only in English. And my student said, yeah, absolutely. You know, like he's only been in the country a couple of years. He reminded me that we have many students that are newcomers, right, to our district. So imagine being in an emergency situation and not having, a clue of what's being said, right? Especially if you haven't grasped that mastery yet of English. So I just wanted to take a moment to remind our staff at each of our sites as they're implementing these important school safety plans to ensure that our multilingual students have access to these instructions. Because if a student is out on the playground maybe, or they're coming back from the restroom, they might not necessarily know, what's going on. So I just want to ensure that our young people have that support. And then lastly, I want to thank our staff for providing us information around the Professional Development Day that took place on November 1st. Something that we're constantly thinking about is ways to improve, right? The support that our teachers are receiving. And I noticed in some of the staff reports, they kind of look like food reviews in the sense that some of them were like 3.5 stars out of 5, in some areas. And it reminded me, I was talking to Dr. McDuffie about this. I'm curious, is it a situation where somebody's more likely to negatively potentially review food like you see on Yelp potentially? Or is it one of those things where they're just giving us honest feedback? And I believe it's probably a combination of both. And I really appreciate our staff giving us honest feedback because we want their learning to be engaging, to be relevant. And I'm really excited to see the professional development that Ms. Lo Chun Vu and her team are going to be providing for our teachers. So please continue to work on that because I'm confident that we will continue to be able to do so. So I appreciate that honest feedback so that we can grow, because what I've learned as a school board member is that if we do not embrace our strengths as well as our areas for growth, then we're not going to improve. So how can we expect our young people to have a growth mindset if we don't model that ourselves? So thank you all for that.
All right. Thank you, President Valencia. Board members, I'd like to add my thanks and appreciation for all the teachers in the district and all of the school nurses, speech path, classified employees. Just want to extend heartfelt gratitude to all the teachers and school nurses and classified employees and speech paths whose dedication and hard work make a profound difference in the lives of the students we serve. Teachers are really the guiding lights, the mentors who shape our young people, inspire their hearts, fostering a love for learning that lasts a lifetime. And so your tireless efforts, creativity, and passion create an environment where students can thrive and reach their fullest potential. And to the school nurses, my wife being in that capacity as well for over 25, 30 years. Your care and compassion ensure the health and well-being of our children, providing comfort and support in times of need. And together you form the backbone of our educational system. And your impact resonates far beyond classroom walls. I talked to school nurses earlier today, LPTs and LVNs, and talked about the importance of their work to our key strategy of nurturing the whole child. I also don't, one of the things that we haven't done in the past, I want to just give a quick shout out is May 1st was Principals Day. Is that right? And although we didn't have a resolution for this day and we don't talk much, I wanted to just give a quick shout out to our school leaders. Our school leaders are so important in the work that we do. The principals play a crucial role in schools, working hard to create a positive learning environment for students, supports teachers, and support teachers and staff. And it's just wonderful to acknowledge their dedication and hard work. I always felt like I was in the middle as a principal, being squeezed from all different sides, from parents to staff, and district personnel as well. So for all of these folks that we've talked about and appreciated during this month, if you'd like to thank a school employee, consider sending them a note just expressing your gratitude for the work that they've done. Your recognition would surely be appreciated by these important folks in the lives of our students. In keeping with honoring our teachers, I'd like to announce that Robert Bruce, transitional kindergarten teacher Melanie Heidinger, is one of the 11 recipients of the Santa Barbara County Special Education Local Plan Area 5th Annual Celebration Award. She's being recognized for her leadership, teamwork, collaboration, and the overall positive spirit in working with students in special education. Melanie was nominated by SMBSD Special Education Program Specialist Amber Walls and supported by Special Ed Director Eric Thompson and the Santa Barbara Community Advisory Committee, which is composed of parents and professionals from each of the 25 school districts in Santa Barbara County that reviewed the nominations. Melanie will be honored at an evening of celebration May 16th in Goleta. I would be remiss also if I didn't congratulate Dr. Tammy Castillo-Schiffer, our new Director of Multilingual Services, for being selected as AXA Region 13 County Administrator of the Year in Student Services category. She was honored last Friday night at an awards banquet. I'm so sorry that I could not be there, but I was privileged to celebrate. I just wanted to celebrate you and just give a shout out to you, to your achievements, with your family and coworkers. I hope you enjoyed that evening. Haven't been able to touch base with you, but congratulations. So I look forward to classified employees week coming up, May 22nd, when our meeting is going to be happening. Okay, I am almost finished. May, we are already celebrating Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month. Our teachers have been provided with a number of resources to support, highlighting the contributions of Asian Pacific Americans, some that you've seen through the presentations. The resources include brief videos highlighting the origin of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, supporting learning about early Asian immigrants to the U.S., or about important Asian contributors or activists, poetry written by Asian women, even learning about children's games from Asia and more. We appreciate our educators in bringing this learning into our classrooms, broadening our students' understanding of others. And the board received a link of these materials as well in one of our previous updates. The month of May is also recognized as Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think it goes very nicely with our Appreciation Week, our Appreciation Month of all our employees as well. In our schools, we understand the importance of nurturing the whole child, not just the academic growth of our students, but also their emotional well-being. It is one of our key strategies outlined in our strategic plan. Especially in these challenging times, it's crucial that we prioritize mental health support for our students, our families, and our staff. I've been very privileged to visit a number of our schools over the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to be continuing my road show for the next few weeks, just presenting hundreds of years of service anniversary pins to our employees, our staff. Employees receive 5 pin for every 5 years. I'm pleased and impressed by the number of 25, 30, 35, 40-year pins that have been distributed, that I've been distributing to our staff members. We have individuals who've given their life service to SMBSD and its students, and I'm humbled when I meet them and thank them for their service to our students on behalf of the Board of Education and this community for their years of service. It's a moment to reflect on the invaluable contributions each of them have made to our organization. Well-deserved pin, I'm sorry, each well-deserved pin represents not just a number of years, but a wealth of experiences, wisdom, and a memory shared together. So with that, I want everyone to have a wonderful and safe evening, and I'll hand it back over to you, President Valencia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. McDuffie. Item 15, adjournment. The next regular school board meeting of the Santa Maria Bonita School District will be held on June 12, 2024. There being no further business before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn? It is moved by Mr. Hollinshead and seconded by Ms. Cordero to adjourn the meeting. All in favor? The time is now 9:14 p.m. Meeting adjourned.